you remember, like Rob Clark,
and Joe Bordelli.
Watch the debate. I'm so tired of people saying, "Oh, did you watch the debate?" You know what you could debate, dude? You could debate these nuts. Ha! God, I'm.
In the heart of Dallas, where legends unfold, a tale of shadows, mysteries untold, but truth is obscured in the depths of the night. The Lone Gunman Podcast sheds a flickering light.
Section 107 of the Fair Use Act of 1976 provides protection to use copyrighted material for research, analysis, education, and commentary purposes. We here at Loose Moose Productions reserve that right. Now, on with the show. Here's Joe B and the Triple B. Hey, Aunt Udine, how's things in Texas?
Everything is going to hell down here in Texas.
Hands on Triple B and Joe B. Joe B and the Triple B, baby. Triple B and Joe B. Rock on, get Joe Morelli. Triple B and Joe B. Joe B and Triple B, baby. Triple B and Joe B. Rock on, get Joe Morelli. And here we go.
And here we go again.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, the Triple B, alongside Willie O'Keefe himself, live in the flesh. Handsome Joe Borelli from the mountains of the Catskills.
Yes, sir.
What's up, Joe?
How are you?
I don't know. This feels weird.
It does, but I respect it because when we pre-recorded this on a couple days ago and we were talking after, we're like, it was an hour and a half and we always premiere at 7 p.m. What if we went live after and had an after party and just chilled with the homies and talked about a fascinating interview with Janet Bannister? I hope everyone enjoyed it. And we were like, let's do it.
Absolutely. And this podcast that we just did for you, it's very thick with facts and opinions and some speculation on our part. But I thought it was fascinating to get an actual member of Guy Bannister's family here on the show and get their perspective on things. And I highly recommend everyone go check out her podcast, Skeletons in the Closet, Family Secrets. You can listen to it anywhere you listen to podcasts, except here. But we're going to help her get her thing up on YouTube. And like I said, season 2 should be coming around the first of the year, and she's working on a true crime podcast, which should be as equally as fascinating. And her show sounds great. It sounds really well produced. She prepares, and I can't say enough good things about it. I love listening to it, and we hope you guys enjoyed the show immensely. But like I said, there's a lot to unpack here, and we're going to get to some things. And first of all, let's see. I came across, Joe, a biographical sketch of Guy Bannister that he actually wrote.
What's a biographical sketch?
I don't know, but here is, I think I still have it saved. This is the first page of it. So he starts it off, I was born in a log cabin in Caldwell Parish on March 7th, 1901, the son of William Henry Bannister and Aileen Gregory Bannister, the oldest of 7 children. Was educated in the public schools of Louisiana and attended Louisiana State University and Soule College of New Orleans. So I thought Janet mentioned that the guy was possibly the last agent that didn't have a college degree accepted into the FBI.
Yes.
But it says here he attended 2 separate colleges, but maybe he didn't
He might not have finished.
graduate.
Yeah. So Janet was graciously in the chat today for our premiere, and they were talking about LSU, and she did say that someone had asked a question. He did not finish LSU. I'm not sure what other colleges you're talking about, but I would bet my bottom dollar that she's accurate on that, and that she actually prefaced it by saying she wasn't sure if he was the actual last FBI agent to be hired without a college degree, but I'm pretty sure he didn't. I think he might have attended one or two schools, but that just goes to the talent of the young guy Bannister, right?
Yeah. It says the beginning of my career as an investigator was with the Monroe, Louisiana State Police Department. I received an appointment as a patrolman in December of 1929. 2 weeks later, the superintendent of police asked me to take a course in stenography, that's typing, after which he would assign me to his office as his secretary with the pay of a sergeant. This was done at the end of 6 months from the date of my first appointment. 6 months later, the superintendent died, and I was assigned duties that made me actually the chief of detectives. On November 5th, 1934, I was sworn in as Special Agent, Division of Investigation, U.S. Department of Justice. The name of this organization was changed a short time later to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. May of 38, I was promoted to the position which now bears the title of Assistant Special Agent in Charge and assigned to Newark, New Jersey. Let's see, May to August. 3 months after that, I was promoted to the Office of Special Agent in Charge and assigned to the Butte, Montana office. This occurred less than 4 years from the date I entered on duty with the FBI. I served in this position until my retirement on December 31st, 1954. But he's jumping ahead in time here a little bit because it says I served in the Butte Division until October 41. Then he was transferred to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, where he stayed until November of 43. And then he was transferred back to the Butte Division. In September 52, I was transferred to the Minneapolis Division, where I remained until the last of December 53, when I was transferred to the Chicago, Illinois Division. I remained there until the date of my retirement. I have been informed that up to the time of my retirement, I had served longer in the position of Special Agent in Charge than any other person in the FBI, a period of nearly 17 years. Wow.
Yeah.
After retirement, I accepted an invitation from Mayor DeSleps Morrison to join the New Orleans Police Department with the assignment of cleaning up the police organized graft system.
Yeah.
The period was from 55 to 57. Many officers were indicted. Some were tried and convicted in different courts as the cases were prepared for federal or state action. Others were removed from office and their cases were handled by the Civil Service Mission. Cases of malfeasance were prepared and submitted to the Orleans Parish Grand Jury against Mayor Morrison, Superintendent of Police Provosty A. Dairies, and District Attorney Leon Hewitt. The cases were tried, in quotes, before the grand jury, but no indictments were returned, Joe. So he actually went after the guy that brought him to New Orleans.
Yeah. Yes. And Janet covers that, I believe, in one of her last episodes, the New Orleans PD.
And the district attorney.
Yeah. Yeah. So the guy above him for sure. And it seems to me that after listening to the episode, that guy was hired to investigate corruption in the New Orleans Police Department. And I don't know if they expected him to do a good job, because he did. And he ended up charging like 10 officers, like a dozen sergeants, and eventually the Mayor Morrison and the guy Davies, who was a head guy, he was making a lot of trouble. And it reminds me, Rob, of The Wire, when the first season they put this unit together to get this drug dealer, and once they got him, they started finding out where the money was going, and it was going to politicians, and like all of a sudden investigation shut down and everyone transferred to like evidence collection, like the boat, all these off.
Well, he did mention Guy's inability to properly read the room. You don't go after, you don't shit where you eat. You don't go after the guy that brought you there. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And yeah, he did. So
he did.
That essentially put a target on his back.
Yeah. And there's a lot of newspaper articles she referenced throughout that time period that some were in favor of Guy, some were anti-Guy, and she read some of his death threats that he was getting theoretically from people in the NOPD that he was probably investigating. I mean, they were like, you're not going to be able to get around anywhere. We're going to find you. Like, and this is what I learned from this podcast, much more complex character than I had ever thought. Right?
Yeah.
Just because, listen, and I'm newer at the JFK assassination than you are, but it seems that the overall consensus is Guy Bannister, like, he had some relationship with Oswald, therefore he was a conspirator or whatever, but it goes much deeper than that. And this podcast really goes into Guy and who he was, and I can't say enough good things about it, Rob. I'll shut up.
Yeah. You're yapping like 6 barbers over there. You're gushing like a little schoolgirl.
I know. Well, hey, I mean, can you blame me?
It's great. I mean, go listen, go subscribe, go share, go like.
Yes.
That's all we can tell you to do.
And listen to the episodes in order, because it really adds the context. Continues.
So, since February of 1958, I have been engaged as a private investigator and criminologist and as president of Guy Bannister Associates Incorporated. I am also president of Employer Security Systems. I am organizing at this time a family real estate corporation. While serving with the FBI as special agent in charge, I supervise the investigative work of several hundred special agents and administer the affairs of the division under my command. The investigations could be and were made in cases involving some 140 federal laws, including antitrust laws, bankruptcy, bank defalcations, bank robbery, extortion, kidnapping, murder, treason, espionage, sabotage, and subversive activities. As a part of my duties, I was supervising the training of thousands of local law enforcement officers. I introduced an innovation in law enforcement training. Major universities were brought into the work, not as is done in Louisiana, where the university apparently takes the lead in establishing the curriculum, standards to be met, selection of instructors. But the training courses were prepared by me. This was done by being accepted as a member of the teaching staff, and the universities concerned were Idaho, the Greater University of Montana, University of South Dakota, and the University, Joe, of Minnesota, where our boy John T. Martin went.
Yeah. And there's a very interesting story about a brush-up Guy allegedly had with Hubert Humphrey. And I guess he was a senator at the time, and the mayor or mayor-elect, I think his name is Freeman, don't quote me on that, were asking Hoover, what's up with this Bannister guy? Like, they were inquiring about him. And Jenna gets into this in her podcast, and she's like, why? He was let go from the FBI not long after that. And she wondered what he did to kind of piss the politicians off. And fascinating. Just something I remember from the podcast. So who knows?
All right, he goes on to say, I'm a communicant of the Baptist Church and have served as a church moderator, a deacon, trustee, and Sunday school teacher. What would you do if your Sunday school teacher was Guy Bannister, Joe?
I would probably pepper him with a ton of questions. I'd probably try to infiltrate him and get as much information as I could. Live in hindsight, right?
Yeah, and there's something I didn't ask her about on the show that I wanted to, and it has to do with Guy Bannister's tombstone. Because it doesn't have an FBI insignia on it. It doesn't have a badge on it. What it has on it is a Freemason symbol. Okay. Yeah. You know, all the Freemasonry conspiracies and
I'm aware, yes.
But he goes into it here. He says, I'm a past master of Graham Schergner Lodge number 383 F and A M, Monroe, Louisiana. I still hold my membership there to this day. I am a member of the Scottish Rite and of Jerusalem Temple, New Orleans, Louisiana. So Guy Bannister was high up in the Masons.
Do we know what, how high up would you say? Something 5?
He said he was a past master of Graham Schergner Lodge number 383. I don't know what level you got to be at to be a master, but I'm guessing it's pretty high. And then he's also a member of the Scottish Rite and the Jerusalem Temple in New Orleans, Louisiana. So,
wow,
be a good question for next time we talk to her.
Yeah.
It says, I am married to the former Mary Wortham of Oak Grove, Louisiana, and we have one daughter, Mrs. Donald Duvio, and we have 3 grandsons. My only living brother is D. Ross Bannister, General Counsel, lawyer, for the Louisiana State Highway Department.
Yeah.
My mother.
On your screen here is Guy on your right, his wife Mary, and his daughter. What did you say her name was again? You just said it.
Mrs. Donald Duvio.
Yes. So I wanted to share this picture as well. I'm sorry to interrupt, sir.
Lovely. My only living brother is Ross Bannister. My mother, Mrs. Aileen Bannister, still resides in the family home I grew up in Monroe. So that is Guy Bannister's biographical sketch, and I have no idea when or why he did this. But I found it.
And that's really interesting because, like I think I said at the end of the episode, he died in 1964, right? When the Warren Commission was kind of just getting going. He obviously wasn't available during the Garrison investigation. And we did cover some of his possible relationship with Garrison. They were both ex-FBI guys. Famously in the JFK movie, Garrison said, "Oh, I used to have lunch with Guy Bannister," and that's very plausible to me.
I think it's highly likely they knew each other
for sure. Right,
both former FBI,
yeah,
about the same age. Well, I guess Guy would have been a little older, but still.
No, I mean you would have it's very plausible to have like a couple times a year lunch with a colleague, right? That's not, it's not out of the realm of possibilities. It's not also conspiratorial either. It's just likely,
Sorry, my mic was muted. Uncle Dave says master's is a 3rd degree, but
what does that mean?
It's not very high. I mean, it goes up to 33rd.
I'm sorry.
Or 30,
Freemasons.
32.
Freemasons. I'm sorry. I was thinking on something else. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the Freemason thing is interesting to me, but
Possible, James.
yeah, I don't know how much weight to put in it. I just don't know, honestly.
All I know is it's on his tombstone, and it just seemed odd.
Yeah.
And another thing that we didn't really get into with Janet, because it's kind of weird to talk to somebody. I mean, I guess it's so far removed from her lineage. I mean, it's not like that bad, but I did come across the autopsy of Guy Bannister, and it's very interesting. Are you ready for this, Joe?
I am ready.
All right. Okay. So before we get into the actual autopsy, in 1978 for the HSCA, our buddy Robert Burris went and talked to somebody, Joe. They went and interviewed. The undertaker was at the Lamana funeral home. The basic cause listed in the book for his death is coronary thrombosis myocardial infarction, which is a big word for heart attack. Right?
Yeah.
The undertaker was the Lamana funeral home, and the medical examiner at the time was Dr. Nicholas Chetta. Now, you might recognize that name because he is the guy that administered sodium pentanol to Perry Russo for the Garrison investigation.
Wait. Okay. I did not know that. He did the autopsy on Bannister?
Yeah.
And he's the same person that's doing the truth serum to...
I believe he also did David Ferry's autopsy.
But on behalf of the truth serum, on behalf of Garrison, I'm sorry. Right?
Yeah,
he would
later.
That. Right. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. A copy of the autopsy protocol was obtained, and the cover sheet is the first set of numbers referred to above. It states, William Guy Bannister, age 63, white male, died at 8 p.m. on June 6, 1964. He was posted at 6:30 a.m. June 7, 64. The final diagnosis is number 1, coronary thrombosis, anterior descending branch of left coronary artery. Number 2, recent and old myocardial infarction, left ventricle. Number 3, hypertrophy of the heart. And number 4, acute pulmonary edema and congestion bilateral. The classification of death was natural. It was attended to and signed by Nicholas Chetta, MD, coroner, and the post-mortem was actually done by Charles Wascom, Jr., MD, pathologist. The examination of the protocol reveals that the heart showed a slight enlargement, and the serial sectioning of the cardiovascular system shows a 1 centimeter gray-white area, indicating a relatively recent occlusion to the anterior descending branch of the left coronary, which is indicative of a recent heart malfunction or heart attack. Mm-hmm. A copy of this protocol was obtained and is attached to this report.
Yeah.
So, final diagnosis, coronary thrombosis, anterior descending branch of left coronary artery, recent and old myocardial infarction, left ventricle, hypertrophy of heart, acute pulmonary edema, and congestion bilateral. That means he had clogged arteries as well. External examination. The body is that of a well-developed, slightly obese, white male appearing the stated age of 63. The body shows the head to be covered with an abundant growth of graying hair, several small red splotches, are present over the right forehead, the largest measuring 1 centimeter. The corneas are slightly opaque. The pupils are round, regular, and equal. A yellowish mucoid material is exuding freely from the nose. No abnormal fluid is noted coming from the ears. The mouth is edentulous. Dental plates are in place. There is no hypermobility noted to the neck. No other marks or scars are noted. Rigor mortis is not noted. Liver mortis is present over the posterior dependent portions of the shoulders and the buttocks, as well as the anterior left lateral chest and the anterior lateral portion of the left flank. The external examination is otherwise not remarkable. The body is opened up with the usual autopsy incision. The organs are present in their normal locations. No abnormal collections of fluid are present in the body. So I'm not going to go into this because it's, it's pretty gruesome. I mean, not really gruesome. It's just, nobody wants to hear this shit. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, well, the chat has a really good handle on this here, sir. And
yeah,
we have clogged arteries, hypothermic is enlarged tissue. It wasn't his, and I don't know if it was his first heart attack, but Janet in the podcast series talks about his previous strokes in the mid-50s. So you're talking
what she thought were strokes, and we're going to get there because they do examine the brain.
Okay. So, but yes, it wasn't his first medical issue. He wasn't the most healthy guy. So
we get to the central nervous system. The scalp is reflected in the usual manner, and there is no hemorrhage or other abnormalities noted. The calvarium is removed. The brain in situ shows no abnormalities. The brain weighs 1540 grams. The circle of Willis shows moderately severe arteriosclerotic plaquing without obstruction, whatever the hell that means. The external surface of the brain shows no abnormalities. There is no evidence of fracture when the dura is stripped from the base of the skull. So what it sounds to me is that his brain looks okay. I don't know what happens to the brain when you have a stroke or how they can tell. Maybe somebody can enlighten us in the chat. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But according to the autopsy, his brain looked good.
Could have just been his heart, maybe.
Possibly.
Liver, big drinker. Who knows?
Well, they said his liver. I forgot to mention his liver. Let's see what they said about his liver. His liver weighed 1980 grams. The gallbladder is slightly enlarged and contains an abundant amount of yellowish to clear bile. The extrahepatic biliary tract is not occluded. The surface is smooth and reddish purple in color. On cut section, the parenchyma is a homogeneous color without abnormal markings. So, I mean, his liver, according to this, looked pretty good, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing crazy going on there.
Yeah. Well, you asked Rob, and our chat has responded. So, Dave said sclerosis is a hardening of tissue. Bungled said a bleed. Colleen, our rocket queen, it means his veins were enclosed. A stroke is a blood clot in the brain. And Tiny Dancer, osteoarteriosis. Don't make me.
Yeah, so arterio, like artery sclerosis.
There you go.
Arteriosclerosis leads to the stroke. So if it wasn't present, then maybe he didn't have one. It's quite possible.
Yeah.
Maybe they just thought he did, or who
But
knows?
I think it's pretty evident that there were health issues, right? I don't think that's debatable, and I know Bannister is on the list of suspicious deaths, and I'm not sure. I think the reason he might be on it is because of the timing of his death, right?
Yeah,
During
real bad timing, man. Real
terrible,
bad timing.
right? The Warren Commission, like mid 64, June 64, I think you said.
Because nobody got to talk to him about this. The Warren Commission, he was totally off the radar for this.
100%. Yep.
And he wasn't around anymore when Garrison came sniffing around. So
Right. He had to go to a ferry, and then that
it's a little sus.
didn't pan out. Right. Yeah, and it's really interesting because I was thinking, Warren DeBreeze, right? I think Garrison
Debris.
DeBreeze. I think Garrison tried to call him, and they used some type of like what they use for like presidential exception. Like, I'm the president, I can't get charged for this. He was like investigating, or so. I don't think they let
Didn't he get a hold of Regis Kennedy?
Garrison.
Yeah, maybe I'm misremembering.
You may be right. I'm just saying. I was reading recently that DeBreeze used that exception to not get called for whatever reason, and of course he is one of the more sus FBI agents that was allegedly running Oswald, like Horace Pena had said, but he had seen him together, but. Going back, I'm not sure if Bannister is a suspicious death, because you have to think, what's the point, right? What's the point of killing him, say, in 1964? So he wouldn't get called to the Warren Commission? I don't think he was going to get called anyway. It's interesting to think about, and I don't know the answer, right? I'm speculating here with you. I don't know. I don't see an obvious reason to knock him off, and it seems like he had health issues for a decade previous to that, right? In the mid 50s, where he had that alleged brain damage that we had talked about with Janet, right? From the stroke and the surgery or whatever. So interesting to think about, for sure.
For sure. And then I came across something else, Joe.
Okay.
And we talked about this guy a couple shows ago, William Gaudette, right? The CIA asset in New Orleans who got his passport. Right, he was in line right behind Oswald when Oswald got his passport to Mexico. In New Orleans. And this guy was a CIA asset. And I think they talked to him for the Warren Commission. And they definitely talked to him for the HSCA, which is what I have here, which is interesting.
Yeah, that's what I remember, the HSCA.
So they tracked down William Gaudette in 1978 at his house in Waveland, Mississippi. Harold Leap and Robert Burris interviewed William Gaudette at his residence at 1101 Aiken Road, Waveland, Mississippi, relative to the assassination of John F. Kennedy. When Leap and Burris arrived at the Gaudette residence for the prearranged interview, Gaudette had Waveland Chief of Police Donald Dorn present for the purpose of verification of our credentials. This guy wasn't messing around. Okay. This is the old school CIA asset who has the chief of police, probably his buddy, check the HSCA investigators' credentials when they showed up at his house for a prearranged meeting. I mean, that's some balls. But okay.
Yes, sir.
When Dorn was satisfied the credentials were authentic, he left the Gaudette residence. Gaudette started the interview by stating that somebody was using him as a, quote, red herring to divert investigators from the people who were involved with Lee Harvey Oswald in the assassination of JFK. Gaudette further explained that he did not believe that Lee Harvey Oswald committed the crime by himself, and the unknown conspirators were putting him under the spotlight for some unknown reason. Gaudette said there could be no other explanation, as some unknown individual called the FBI after the assassination using Gaudette's name and reported that he saw Jack Ruby in the French Quarter of New Orleans buying an art painting from an art dealer prior to the assassination. Gaudette said he never called the FBI and did not know Jack Ruby prior to Ruby killing Lee Harvey Oswald. But we do know that Jack Ruby did travel to New Orleans, and maybe he bought a painting somewhere. Who the hell knows?
Possible.
So they questioned Gaudette a little bit more, and they asked him if he knew the following people. His responses were as follows. Guess who the number one person they asked him about, Joe?
Jack Martin.
Come on, man. Who are we talking about here?
Guy Bannister.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The price is wrong, Joe.
Happy Gilmore quote.
Joe Borelli, come on down. You are the next contestant on The Price is Wrong, bitch.
Happy Gilmore 2 coming out. It's filming now.
Sadly, Bob Barker will not be in it.
No, but it will be epic. Continue, sir.
Maybe he'll be there in AI form.
You never know these days.
You never know. So they ask him about Guy Bannister, and he says, quote, "Yes, I worked with him. My work with Bannister was not CIA directed, though. However, it did involve anti-Castro activity. There was a lot of anti-Castro activity in New Orleans at the time." Question: did Guy Bannister know Lee Harvey Oswald? Answer: yes. I personally observed Guy Bannister talking to Lee Harvey Oswald in front of the International Trade Mart. However, I don't know what they were talking about.
Not the only person who has said that.
Yeah, one of the 13.
Yeah.
They asked if he knew Louis Rebel. No. Bernie de Torres. No. Orlando Bosch. I believe I worked with him in Costa Rica. Sergio Arcacha Smith. Answer: yes. He's a liar who gave me a lot of trouble concerning a documentary film which I helped produce. Carlos Bernier. Answer: yes. Did some CIA work together? Maurice Bishop. No. George de Mohrenschildt. Answer: yes, but I don't remember how. Philip Harbin. Answer: yes, but I don't remember how. E. Howard Hunt. Answer: don't want to talk about it. And then in parentheses it says Gaudette later in the interview changed his mind and gave some information as reported. I guess we haven't got there yet. Do you recall ever seeing him talk to people whom you knew? Yes. Well, not people who I knew, but who I knew who they were. The one individual that is outstanding above all others is Guy Bannister, who I did personally know, who had been a law enforcement officer, and who was involved in some new activities in connection with the Cubans in New Orleans. What they were, I don't know. I saw him in deep conversation with Lee Harvey Oswald on Camp Street, right by the post office. They were leaning over and talking, and it was an earnest conversation. What it was, I don't know. Question: did Bannister and Oswald appear to know each other? Answer: obviously. Question: they did not appear to be strangers talking on the spur of the moment. Answer: no. It seemed to me that Guy Bannister wanted Oswald to do something. This is the way it seemed to me. The only other part I know about Oswald is that I do know that he did go and make a radio contact with a friend of mine named Junior Butler, or Ed Butler. Ed Butler was his name, but this guy knew him as Junior. I knew his father because he was involved in a thing which was supported by something entitled Information Council of the Americas, or INCA, which was a nonprofit party making interviews which were then shipped by South America. I know he made a radio interview. I recall hearing it, but I don't recall something about it. So that's interesting. From William Gaudette. And then I came across this, looking for a date. Yeah. It's dated January 24th, 1961. It is an FBI memo. This thing from the special agent in charge, New Orleans, to the director, J. Edgar Hoover. Codenamed Sugar Britches. And it has to do with the Fronte Revolucionario Democrático, the FRD. During the course of your authorized interview with former special agent in charge Guy Bannister, you should also interview him concerning his alleged connection with the Friends of Democratic Cuba. Note, regarding the memo, Donahue to Belmont, January 1761, noted that former SAC Guy Bannister reportedly was connected with Maurice Gatlin, who heads the Anti-Communist Committee of the Americas. Gatlin's mental instability appears to have been well established, and he has been reported by one source as insane. We instructed New Orleans to interview Bannister to clarify his connection, if any, with Gatlin's organization. On January 2061, New Orleans advised that it had received information indicating that Bannister was on the board of directors of the Friends of Democratic Cuba. This organization reportedly is controlled by the Fronte Revolucionario Democrático, an anti-Castro organization which is receiving the covert support of the CIA. Joe. And this is an FBI memo from 1961. And they knew then that the CIA was funding these anti-Castro Cuban groups. That's hella interesting. Hella interesting.
Yes, sir. And Bannister was a few years away from. He had been away from the FBI since like the mid 50s, I believe. So even more interesting.
Yeah.
As who scooped him up type of thing, and who used his ability to get information on alleged communists or communist sympathizers. And yeah, fascinating.
Fascinating stuff. But I think that's about it for documents we get into. I got a whole stack of them. I'll save that for another show. But let's check in with our people, Joe, and see what we got going on down here, and say hi to some people before we get into some emails.
Sounds good.
There's a new name, Asteroid Coming. Tiny Dancers in the house. Paula Jane bunkled. Carlene, Rocket Queen is here. Uncle Dave.
Yeah.
Garden and Guns. Slacker Dan. Richard Hawkins. James. Greg.
And Mr. Mike. And I want to say send your prayers out to Mike. He just lost a close friend of his. I believe her name was Donna yesterday, and somewhat unexpected. So, life throws us crazy shit. So,
yeah, everybody keep Mike in your thoughts and prayers, and
exactly.
Send him some love, folks.
Yeah.
He's one of the good guys.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Joseph, you ready to get into some emails? It's been a while since we dipped our hand in the old bag here at the Lunguman Podcast.
Is your sack full?
My sack is bulging.
Have you been saving your sack?
I have been edging for like 3 years or 3 months, however long it's been. Joe loves it when I talk dirty. All right.
Love it.
Let's see here.
Right up my alley, sir.
All right. I think we'll start here. This is an email from Backcountry Drifter. And okay, we're going to skip this one because it's like 8 pages long. And it's all about, I'll just read you the first paragraph and you'll know why we're not going to read any more of it.
Okay.
No, hi, how you doing? It just jumps right into it. When you rewind and see the formation of Mega Study Group as a front for the Zionist Mafia in the early 80s and how Bronfman went to Russia to put most of the kleptocracy components into play before the Soviet Union broke down, they started using Epstein and Trump to launder the money stolen during perestroika using commercial real estate. It starts the timeline back almost a century.
You lost me.
Yeah, and there's about 8 pages of that. So, thanks, Backcountry Drifter, for sending that. But, yeah, in case you don't listen to Quick Hits, Rob hates long-ass emails.
Yep.
And big words.
Yep.
Bastard. Yep. Don't do that. Cut right to the chase, please.
And hi, Sally. Did we say hi to Sally?
We did.
It's
the Rocket
very
Queen,
late for her right now, so I respect that.
Well, no, she's 3 hours behind us.
You said
It's like
wait,
6:21.
wait.
She's on the West Coast. She's in Oregon.
Oh, I thought she was in Britain.
No, Sally's in Britain. Where are you, Joe?
That's where I said Sally.
You said Colleen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Colleen, they're next to each other, but I meant to say hi, Sally.
Oy.
I know Sally is. I know this.
Sally's a night owl. You leave her alone.
Well, I'm complimenting her, sir. See, Sally just said it's 2:21 a.m. here. So
now we do get plenty of very informative and crazy emails from Tiny Dancer here and there. So let's dive into this one, Joe.
Okay.
And it has to do with a little bit of Walt Disney. And this is concerning the authenticity of the Zapruder film. And Chris Gallup, who was apparently on the Ocelli Effect, got into it a little bit. He says, back in 1963, the only people that had the technology to cut, splice, animate, and fill voids on film was Walt Disney. They were the animation specialists. Walt Disney wasn't working for the CIA in 1963, and I've seen no evidence that Walt Disney worked for the CIA or in any way was involved in the alteration of the Zapruder film. The same film that Abraham Zapruder took the afternoon Kennedy died is the same film we have today. So this is Chris Gallup's opinion. Now, I like Chris. He's a good dude. I met him when I was in Dallas. So I'm not going to totally cut him off at the knees, but big butt, because I like big butts and I cannot lie. Walt Disney was not the only person as a corporation that had the technology to do this in 1963. They were have you heard of Vanilla Skies, Joe?
Yes.
Where they were altering pictures and films going way back.
Oh, yeah.
Like to the 1860s.
Yeah.
Where they would white out the sky for whatever reason.
Yeah.
They had the ability to mask using like etchings on glass. This goes back to the 1800s. Like there's a famous picture. Excuse me. Let me see if I can find it real quick, Joe. Because this is going to blow your mind. they were doing Photoshop, basically, back in the middle 1800s.
Really?
And it was pretty good. So if they could do it back then, I'm sure they could do it now. Now,
that's a safe assumption, yes.
Now, hold on. Let me go back here and I'm going to share my screen. Just to show you and all the people how they did this back then. Let's see. Share screen. Yeah, I got it. Boom. Now check this out, Joe.
Okay.
Okay, so on the left is the original picture. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It is, I don't know who it is. Some random donk. I don't know who it is. Okay. Now, the photo on the right has been masked to be turned into Abraham Lincoln.
Masked? What do you mean
Yeah.
by that?
Means they basically masked his face and hair onto there.
Okay.
Somehow. Because the picture was taken back in, like I said, in the middle 1800s. They didn't have film back then.
Yeah.
So they used the what to take the photographs. It was done on like an impression of glass, I think, and then they could manipulate the photo using etchings, and you know, something else, like, because they used to have to sit there for like 20 minutes to develop a picture, like on the glass. Like it wasn't you just took their picture. They had to sit there for a while and not move for like 20 minutes to get a good, decent image, you know, to show up. But they've been doing this shit for years and years. You know, so it's nothing new. And if this was being done in the middle 1800s, you know, they were definitely probably doing it, or they could do it 100 years later in the 1960s. Pretty good. And I'm not saying that the Z film was doctored in any way, but I'm saying it wasn't just Disney that had the technology. This stuff has been around for 100 years before the JFK assassination. So, yeah.
Sorry, I'm sure you heard Ruby giving a little update.
Put a sock in it, Ruby.
This is Ruby. We decided to name her Ruby. I did. She's cute. And she responds to Ruby. And she was barking for, I don't know why. So I'm sorry that I interrupted you, sir. But for continuation purposes, I wanted to say, or Ruby wanted to say, hi, Lone Gunman Podcast crew. Sorry for barking. All right. All right.
Okay,
Sorry.
I got.
Stop.
Oh, Ruby, give her a bone, Joe.
She has one.
Give her a big bone. Okay, I'm trying to find this.
Well,
Pardon me while I pull this up here.
I rescued her from China, so she has some trauma for sure. But she is a cute girl, and we are hanging up here in the Catskill Mountains. So sorry again, Ruby. Oh, thank you, South to West. I know, she's so cute, right?
All right, Joe, check this
Ruby
out.
is your mascot now. I
have no idea who sent this to us because the email name was nothing but a bunch of numbers.
Okay.
So they basically said I heard the name Roswell Thompson on one of your early podcasts. Roswell Thompson being from Louisiana and never hearing of him. I searched newspapers.com and this article popped up, and it's a connection with Thomas Beckham. I thought you would like to see it. And I do. I like to see this. So this is May 14th, 1959, Gretna, Louisiana, the West Bank Herald. And if you can read the caption, it says, Tommy left and Sonny Beckham with Kingfish Roswell Thompson. They'll give governor's race a new beat. So that little grinning douche on the left is Thomas Beckham. Roswell Thompson, a mayoral candidate for New Orleans, and I believe high up in the KKK or the Nazi Party. I think it was the Nazi Party. But that's Thomas Beckham and his brother Sonny. And apparently, while this guy was campaigning for governor in Louisiana, he used to bring these two sweet little boys with him, and they used to a cappella sing as entertainment. Which is interesting because, even as much as 8 years later, from the time of this photo to the time of the Garrison grand jury, Roswell Thompson was right by Thomas Beckham's side. Despite all of the trouble that Thomas Beckham had gotten into, all of the cons and all the trouble and all the arrests and all the check bouncing, this guy stood by his side. Guy who desperately wanted to be governor. So, interesting stuff there for sure. So thank you for that. I always like seeing cool stuff like that. Let's see. We can't give that one away yet, Joe.
Thank you, Gregory. Fish and jam band fan and dog fan. She's getting a little high maintenance, but
see why your girlfriend didn't want to be around her. No, I'm just kidding.
I am in exile like the Cuban exiles. I am.
Joe is relegated to the country house. Say, get the hell out of the apartment.
Hey, I am more than fine with that. Believe me.
Easy.
She won't listen this far deep in the podcast, if at all. So
you never know, Joe.
True.
So then we got an email from our buddy Paul. Hey, Rob and Joe, in your last episode, you brought up the attorney representing Marguerite Oswald with King Candy. That law firm represents a case I'm researching in the JFK assassination. I was planning on doing a dive.
No. I'm sorry. Mackenzie was Marina's later lawyer, not Mackenzie. I'm sorry.
No. I believe Joe has ancestry like I do, so I'm going to suggest following up on the two attorneys. Kelly Porter Jacobs, born 5/30/1920 in Kansas, spent time in Texas. Check out his background after representing Marguerite. Joe Clarence Marlin Spurlock, 8/31/1910. He's the first as his son and grandson have his name. His son even became a judge like he did. Take a gander after his first wife died and who he married in 78. Which is in the attached article, which we'll get to in a second. And then Denning Shatman, a lawyer who represented a business I'm researching on the JFK assassination. Haven't got to it yet. Interesting stuff. If you dig a little on the attorneys and enjoy your show, and God bless Paul. So let's open this up here and see what is going on here. So Joe Spurlock, an attorney, will give an address entitled International Espionage for members of the Phi Sigma Mu Chapter Phi Eta, 7 p.m. Tuesday in the Mahogany Room of the Elks Club. During World War II, Spurlock served as a security intelligence corps and traveled extensively on his behalf. He has retained his interest in the subject of international espionage and widely known as a speaker and writer in this field. He was a state commander of the American Legion in 1949 and has been active in that organization throughout its history. He will be introduced by Mrs. Clarice Lattimore, chairman in charge of the program. Interesting.
Yeah.
That they got a lawyer for Marguerite who's interested in international espionage. Basically what her son is accused of doing. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. And apparently he had another. It's supposed to contain 2 attachments. We only got 1, but here's the second one. Monica Henke Basil Spurlock. She was the widow of Justice Joe Spurlock of Fort Worth. Passed away peacefully Saturday, May 30th, 2009. So who was this lady? Born Monica Lyra Rudolfina Katharina Henke in Vienna, Austria, the daughter of Baron and Baroness Rudolf Henke. The girl was schooled at the College of Young Girls in Cannes, France. She immigrated in 1933 to the United States through the port of New York, joining her mother, Baroness Katharina von Ockesem Henke, a fashion designer who was with the House of Levin and later had her own label. In her early years in New York, Monica designed hats, at one time working with Lily Dash. She later owned and ran her own millinery shop and was a buyer for a New York women's clothing store. She became a naturalized citizen in 1943 while serving in a sensitive war service appointment to the United States Office of Censorship during World War II. Her first marriage was Mr. Amos Basil, attorney at law practicing in New York in 1942. In 1978, Monica married Justice Joe Spurlock Sr., widower of Clarice Spurlock, Fort Worth's first city councilwoman.
Clarice.
She moved. Hello, Clarice. She moved to Fort Worth and remained there after Judge Spurlock's death in 1989. Becoming the well-loved matriarch of his family, she was interested in politics, blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to jump, see if something interesting here that would jump out at me. She made a photographic safari trip to Africa, an archaeological dig in Israel, an American Goodwill Ambassador trip to Russia, and many times traveled to the Balkans, Mexico, Asia, Caribbean, blah, blah, blah. Huh. Interesting. So what are you trying to say, Phil? That she was a spook, Paul? I don't know. Quite possible. For shitty. So, there's a couple emails we got from some listeners. Nothing too crazy. Well, the crazy ones, I should have caught that first one.
Well, I respect your process. You don't just pre-read the emails and just, get rid of them just because they're crazy.
Well, sometimes I do.
Well, with quick hits, you...
I don't even open the mailbag till day of. But this one's a little different because I have correspondence with so many people that they're not really asking questions. It's just feeding me information and,
right,
sharing things, which, hey, I encourage everybody to do. The Lone Gunman Podcast at gmail.com. If you would like to, too. And
That's
Sally
right.
says we could do video questions next time. Send in video questions. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Sorry.
Definitely do that. I'm not sure how we could get them, as most, I don't know if most videos are over 25 megabytes, because that's pretty much all you can send through email.
Yeah.
Unless you send it some other way, like a link to a drive or something.
Or like Facebook Messenger, like just audio question too, right? That I think we've been able to play some of those in the past, right?
Yeah, audio or video questions. That'd be cool. If you can figure out a way to get them to the Lone Gunman Podcast at gmail.com, we'll definitely we'll throw you up here on the screen with us and let you talk to the people. And I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, and that's why after we recorded the show a couple days ago with Janet, we are here talking to our base, our loyal listeners. And
I thought Robbie, before I got through the whole sentence, I thought Robbie said, I'm going to send pics of my hog, but it says my dog Sheba. So thankfully, it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. And yes, Greg, I am the man.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I can't argue with that. And I had
Robbie, please don't.
And Rob, like I had a bunch of questions written down for Janet as well that we didn't get to, and because we yapped like 6 barbers. And
I see enough dicks on Twitter. Thank you.
Yeah, and talked about like a lot of other random things. We didn't get to all of our questions, which is why at the end I offer her to come back on. She's obviously going to have another I think it's her 2nd season. I'm not sure how she's doing it, but it's going to focus more on JFK or Guy Bannister and the JFK assassination. And I'm just really excited. I was so happy with that episode and interview.
Yeah, we could have talked to her for like 3 or 4 hours. You know what I mean?
Easily.
Yeah. She's definitely a natural talker.
And I think it was her first guest podcast appearance.
Maybe.
I haven't heard another, but I mean, she was amazing. She was a little nervous of how it came out, but I was like, it was great.
Yeah, it was definitely great.
Coming from someone who had some pretty terrible initial podcast episodes.
Yeah. Go back 10 years and listen to the first 50 shows.
But that's
cringeworthy.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Joe, our show's been around for 10 years. Her show's been around for 2 months, and it sounds 10 times better than this show ever sounded. Yeah. It's so slickly produced, and it just sounds great.
And she has a great podcast voice. I mean, it just kind of lulls you, right? But she's also very honest, objective, and that's kind of towards the title "Skeletons in Your Closet," right? She's kind of going head on with the premise that her uncle was a very, I think she used the word complicated figure, right? And she's objectively trying
it could be worse. I mean, you could find out your great uncle was Ted Bundy or some weird shit like that. You know what I mean? It could be worse to be related to some notorious person, and she got a pretty good one to be related to.
Yeah, for sure. And we never heard. I mean, we didn't get a interview with Guy Bannister in his life. We haven't heard from anyone in his family, so it's refreshing almost, right?
Yeah, because
go back and
Janet's dad actually knew him. Okay, Guy Bannister was his uncle.
Yep.
He, growing up, he met him. He was around him. So he actually knew Guy Bannister and his brother Ross.
Yeah.
That those were his uncles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So to have his unique perspective, he's still alive, and to be able to interview him, and the fact that he's sharp enough to remember things is awesome.
Yeah, and his he has a few audio clips in her episodes, and I think I said this at the end.
It's live, Paul.
It's brave to kind of take that head on. Like, what was my uncle And like I said in our interview, there's the view of Guy Bannister from the JFK movie, and there's the view of the Bannister from their family. And of course, you have to take that objectively, but he fell somewhere in the middle of that, right? Those portrayals. And if we didn't have people like her coming out and exploring their family history, we would just be subject to what we knew him in the JFK movie, right? Which honestly probably isn't that realistic, like somewhat, but you know what I mean? Like we need people like this to come out, and not with deathbed confessions and trying to make money, not mentioning any names. Hunt. Sorry. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think one thing that I don't know if we mentioned it in the podcast, but when I talked to her before that, she had mentioned, that because I kind of asked her, is this like a one and done type thing, or what's your plans? And apparently Guy Bannister is not the only notorious person in her family that she's related to. But I don't know if she has plans to go into this other thing, or if she's possibly going to be telling other people's stories, for them.
I think so, Rob. I think she
like somebody on the par of like, if she could track down like Rachel Oswald and tell her story, that'd be crazy. There's a big suggestion, Janet, if you're listening. June or Rachel Oswald, or Robert Oswald's kids. I saw there was like one of Robert's sons, his grandsons is named Trey Oswald. It was in his obituary, so, and yes, I already looked on Facebook, people, and I couldn't find him. But, something like that, would be fascinating to like find out.
Yeah. And we can't deter people and ancestors, even if they're a niece or whatever, from exploring family history, because the alternative is no context, and us going off the JFK movie or the things we heard.
Well, it's pure speculation, Yeah, we got documents. We can go by the documents. I got Guy Bannister's own biography, but I'd much rather hear it from, somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And, especially from the perspective that it's part of her family, it's just crazy, man.
It is.
I'm so glad I found her.
You are the GOAT for doing that. When you told me, I was like, what? And you and I have kept it extremely under wraps in the past couple of weeks. And because we wanted to bring it to you exclusively, to the TLG crew that tunes in every week. And, I can't recommend her podcast enough. Listen to it from 1 to 9. Don't skip, and just understand. Try to forget your biases of who you think Guy Bannister is or was, or what role he has. I don't know. I'm still debating. Like, I'm not saying pro or con.
We didn't even go into our theory that General Walker sent John T. Martin to go talk to him, and Bannister sent him to go film Oswald, and yada yada yada. We didn't go down, because I told her we're not kooky conspiracy theorists, which we're not. We have good reason to think these things.
Yeah, but I think we're pretty reasonable, to be honest, especially when you consider the other scoofers out there. But we are hopefully going to have her on again. We had a great conversation. We had a great time. She's going to come out with another season that's going to be focused on Guy Bannister and more of the JFK stuff. What happened to the files?
She hasn't even gotten to the good, juicy stuff yet.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, exactly.
that's why I was
And
surprised that she came on and was answering all of our questions about it. Because
yeah,
she got to put 10 episodes together for that part of his life. So
yeah,
she's going to be deep down in some rabbit holes herself here in the next
yeah,
few months. And, I trust me, I know how it is having a job, having kids, and trying to dive into this and produce something, on a weekly basis. And
yeah,
it's a lot of work. So I hope she sticks with it. And, we'll definitely be looking forward to her stuff for sure.
yeah.
I don't know that Dean Andrews had any kids. But maybe he had brothers and sisters that had kids. Who knows?
I do not know, sir. I have no idea. I mean, I can't. Thinking of it, I'm like, maybe he didn't have kids, but what do I know?
Who, Dean Andrews?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe he did. Hell, I don't know.
Well, I'm saying because of his alleged preferences.
Dean Andrews wasn't homosexual.
Maybe.
You think he was?
I don't know. I wasn't
He was.
that he was. No, he just
No,
talked crazy.
that was jive talking, man. That's
Always
cool cat shit.
see. That's actually, and I'm
That's
not.
not like gay lingo.
Yeah, I'm not. Listen, I don't care of making myself an idiot, but it's
He's Swiss,
always,
like a Swisher.
It always seemed like that, right?
No.
Well, that goes to the bias of what we all have listened to for a long time in this assassination.
I don't know who you're listening to.
I mean, how could you not think he was? Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I never got that inkling off of Dean Andrews, bro.
Really? Okay.
No.
Maybe I'm just like losing my mind. It's late, but I assumed he was.
No.
So that's exactly what we're talking about, right? Like people's just type of understanding of things can differ in a lot of ways, and we hope that the Janet Bannister interview with us, and if you listen to her podcast, we'll hope clear some up on what Guy Bannister was like, and we can move a little closer to.
Yeah, because like I said in the show, he was right in the middle of everything going on in New Orleans. He knew all the people from David Ferry, to Clay Shaw, to all the anti-Castro Cubans, to all these other people that have been in and out of his office, Dalzell, David Lewis, it just, the list goes on and on and on of people that saw Oswald in that office. And if you can believe what Delphine says, the reason she changed her story later to the HSCA is because during the Garrison investigation, she was scared to tell the truth because Bannister had died. She thought maybe there was something suspicious to that. David Ferry had just died. So she decided not to say anything, much like Thomas Beckham decided not to say anything to Garrison. But by the time the HSCA rolls around, they change their story.
Right.
So it's possible.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that was just a wrong assumption on my part. And
you still talking about that, Joe? I've been changed the subject.
It's just blown my mind in a sense. But
what, the Dean Andrews is not gay?
Yeah,
he's not gay.
In parish prison. He dare not talk for the record, but he said, "Come to Bourbon Street and I'll show you what I think of the case."
Does this look like a gay man to you, Joe?
In parish prison. He dare not talk for the record, but he said, "Come to Bourbon Street and I'll show you."
You can come to Bourbon Street and I'll show you, big boy.
Kind of. I mean, I don't know.
Anyway, folks, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Everybody, drop in the comments section and tell Joe how wrong he is about Dean Andrews.
Yes.
Straight as an arrow was Dean. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Thanks for watching our podcast before this podcast. Smash the like button. Okay, if you're not subscribed, subscribe if you're hearing this. We appreciate all the support. And go check out Janet's podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe to that. Leave a 5-star review for her.
Yeah.
Because that'll help her out. She was nice enough to come on the show. So let's go send the army of minions over there to help her out. I'd love to see her numbers explode from this. So
yes, link is in the description, sir.
I'm sorry, what?
Link is in the description.
Not of this show. Of the show we did with her, it is.
Right. Okay.
Yes. But again, if you listen to podcasts on iTunes or you listen on Spotify, search for it there, subscribe to it. You know, just like anything else, all the listens go back to home. You don't have to go to the base source of the podcast for it to count. So anyway, thank you guys again, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, everyone. Peace.
Poodles. Goddamn poodles.
In parish prison. He dare not talk for the record, but he said, "Come to Bourbon Street and I'll show you what I think of the case." The greatest lies are told in the name of truth. The greatest crimes are committed in the name of justice. The quotation is Jim Garrison's. It could be used for him or against him in this strange case. Good night.
What are you doing, Joe?
You were just doing the same thing.
Oh, no.